Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Florida will fine businesses and schools for requiring customers and students to show proof of vaccination, while New York City doubles down on its mandatory vaccine on teachers. There is turmoil around the Chinese Communist Party's diplomatic relations with the international community. Lithuania offended the communist regime by partnering with Taiwan. The new German ambassador to China died for unknown reasons less than 2 weeks into his appointment. The Canadian Conservative Party details plans to separate from the CCP if it takes power after the election. And speaking of elections, Pennsylvania's election probe changed directions. You'll be surprised to hear what happened. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. Florida will punish institutions that violate the state's ban of vaccine passports. Its health department will start issuing $5,000 fines to businesses, schools, and government agencies that require customers or students to show proof of vaccination effective September 16th. An institution will be fined $5,000 per individual. The new rule does not apply to healthcare providers, businesses, or other entities that impose vaccine mandates on their own employees. Governor Ron DeSantis banned vaccine passports by executive order back in April. He said vaccination records are private health information that shouldn't be shared through mandates. DeSantis added a requirement to show a passport to take part in everyday life creates two classes of citizens. Currently, New York City, New Orleans, and San Francisco are set to impose rules for businesses to restrict their services to vaccinated customers only. Los Angeles is also looking into this as well. Yet the pushback is also strong. A teacher union in New York City, the United Federation of Teachers, is resisting full compliance with the city's vaccine mandate for public school teachers and staff. In a last-minute announcement from Mayor Bill de Blasio, unvaccinated staff in the Department of Education were told they will be taken off the payroll. Even if you're holding medical and religious exemptions, you are not an exception to this oppressive rule. President of the Teachers Union, Michael McCaul, said the city's proposed policy states staff with medical issues can stay on the payroll until they have exhausted their sick days and then go on unpaid leave, while staff with religious objections would go on unpaid leave immediately. In both cases, staff not only loses their pay, but their health insurance too. McCaul noted that the no exception mandate violates federal and state law as well as their contract. The teachers union has declared an impasse in negotiations. At the same time, its municipal labor committee will take legal action to challenge the health department's power to mandate the shots. McCaul vowed the union is working to get answers for its members as soon as possible. In Oregon, police officers and firefighters sued Governor Kate Brown over the COVID-19 vaccine mandate for state employees. Brown's executive order on August 13th imposed a mandatory vaccine on all state executive branch employees, citing the Delta variant, the imminent FDA approval at the time, and that both private and public employers in the country have mandated the shots. But the Oregon Fraternal Order of Police and the Kingsley Firefighters Association disagree. In the lawsuit, they argued Brown's order is unenforceable because it conflicts with Oregon statutes and violates both the state and the U.S. Constitution over free expression, equal protection, free exercise, and due process. The plaintiffs warned that enforcement of the order would result in wrongful termination. The order is forcing state employees to choose between their rights, privileges, and liberties as American citizens and their careers and financial prospects for the future. You should never be made to make such a choice in the first place. The Coalition of Oregon Police Officers and Firefighters asked the court to declare the order unlawful and block it. Republican lawmaker Michael McCaul, ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said the Taliban isn't allowing Americans to leave an airport. 6 airplanes, while some sources say 4, carrying Americans and Afghans have been sitting at the Mazar-i-Sharif Airport in northern Afghanistan for days. But they can't leave because the Taliban is holding them hostage for something in exchange. What does the Taliban want? McCaul didn't say what their specific demands were, but the group is seeking international recognition for its government. Now, does it make any sense to anyone that the Taliban is holding hostages to prove they are not terrorists? McCaul also claimed he had learned the exact number of Americans still trapped in the country from a classified report, and the number was in the hundreds. Over the weekend, Representative Darrell Issa, whose office has been working to evacuate 2 elderly U.S. citizens from Afghanistan, said that it is likely about 500 Americans remain stranded in the country. This clearly contradicts the information from the Biden administration. On Sunday, White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain said the number of Americans left was around 100. Germany's new ambassador to China, Jan Hecker, less than 2 weeks into his appointment, has died at the age of 54. German officials confirmed the sad news on Monday, September 5th. While the cause of Hecker's death has not been released, we couldn't find anything saying the ambassador had been previously ill. In fact, Hecker's death seemed to be so unusual it shocked the German officials. The Federal Foreign Office of Germany issued a statement on Monday. We are deeply saddened and shocked to learn of the sudden death of the German ambassador to China. Chancellor Angela Merkel expressed her shock and grief as well. She said, "I am profoundly shaken by Jan Hecker's death. I mourn for a highly valued, long-standing advisor of deep humanity and outstanding expertise." Merkel added she was full of gratitude to have worked closely with him for years and expressed her condolences to his family. Hecker has been an influential player in Merkel's exclusive inner circle since 2015, though he maintained a low public profile. He coordinated refugee policy during the European migrant crisis until he became Merkel's foreign policy advisor in 2017. Hecker arrived in Beijing with his wife and 3 children on August 1st. Yet the new ambassador only presented his credentials letter on August 24th. Hecker said at the time his main goal would be to ensure the long-term and stable development of German-China relations in the interest of the people of both countries. At a party at his new home in Beijing on September 3rd, one of the guests told Reuters that the ambassador seemed happy and all right. In Germany, Hecker's appointment to Beijing was seen as an effort to stabilize relations with the CCP in the post-Merkel era, as the chancellor has decided to step down later this year. The new ambassador originally planned to fly back to Germany to help Merkel until the end of her term. However, due to the recent, quote, diplomatic situation, probably relating to the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, Hecker was ordered to stay. We offer our sincere condolences to his family. And speaking of China, it has been experiencing some upheaval in its diplomatic relations with the West. Last Friday, Lithuania recalled its ambassador to China after the CCP recalled its ambassador to the Baltic country. It also expelled the top Lithuanian envoy from Beijing in August. What is this political drama about? Well, Lithuania decided to move closer to Taiwan. The CCP views Taiwan as part of its own territory, even though the communist regime has never ruled the democratic island. In recent years, the CCP has been quite outspoken about its ambition to take over Taiwan and frequently conducts military exercises invading its airspace. Some experts anticipate the CCP will attack the island within 6 years. But whether that could happen or how quickly it is to happen greatly depends on how the international community views the CCP's aggression. It has been trying so hard to pressure other countries to cut ties with the island through economic benefits as well as threats. Taiwan now has only 15 diplomatic allies, so you can imagine any nation enhancing ties with Taiwan right now would be a big disruptor to the CCP's insidious plan. But Lithuania just did that. In May, it dropped out of the CCP-led 17+1 group and called on other European countries to quit it as well. In July, the Baltic country allowed Taiwan to open an office in Vilnius under its own name. Last month, Lithuania's vice foreign minister said the country will open a representative office in the capital of Taipei by the end of the year. The CCP was outraged, but Lithuania enjoys overwhelming support from the EU. More than 60 members of the European Parliament expressed their solidarity with Lithuania in an open letter. It said, "The EU must continue to reiterate the rights of all its member states to conduct their economic, cultural, and diplomatic relations with Taiwan as they see fit, and to do so free from threats and intimidation by the Chinese government. Taiwan has a vital role to play in the international community." And coming up, the Canadian Conservative Party platform plans to stand up against the CCP, and Pennsylvania's election probe takes a new turn. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like this video and share it across all your social media. Also, double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel and click the bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new video. I would like to thank you all for your continued support, And with that being said, let's get back to the show. The CCP's ambition goes far beyond Taiwan. Its ultimate goal is to bring the entire world under its rule. Every government today faces a choice to stand up to the communist regime and reject it, or comply with its order and be complicit. Canada's Conservative Party has chosen the former. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of the Liberal Party called an early election last month. Election day is set for September 20th, just 2 weeks from now. The Liberals seem pretty confident that their big government-style handling of the pandemic would win over Canadians' hearts. The government imposed prolonged lockdowns, harsh restrictions, and now in some provinces, vaccine passport systems. But it has also been very generous with government subsidies. The Liberals believe that the time is ripe to reclaim the majority government they lost in the 2019 election, although many people have reservations about this. In Canada, if over 50% of elected members of Parliament belong to the same political party, that party then forms a majority government. But the Liberal Party has a big problem. It's too close to the Chinese Communist Party. The Trudeau government sent over 17 tons of PPE, personal protective equipment, to China in February last year, while the country itself faced shortages of medical supplies. It turned out to be a terrible choice. The CCP depleted the world's protective equipment stores, including Canada. While two Canadian citizens, Michael McCaul and Michael Spavor, known as the two Michaels, have been arbitrarily jailed in China since December 2018, the Trudeau government still chooses to keep working with the CCP. Rebel News broke the news that Trudeau had invited the People's Liberation Army to Canada to take part in joint military exercises. Luckily, General Jonathan Vance nixed the plan after the arrest of the two Michaels. However, Trudeau reportedly raged at the Canadian Armed Forces over the cancellation for unclear reasons. In a more recent case, Canadian Crown Corporation Marine Atlantic awarded a $100 million contract for a 200-meter ferry to the Swedish company Stena. The company then subcontracted the vessel construction to a huge state-owned operation in China, Jingling Shipyard. Conservative members of Parliament Pierre-Paul Huss called the move unbelievable. He said the Canadian government should have checked who the Swedish company's subcontractors were first. It's funding a Chinese company heavily subsidized by the CCP, and Canadian companies cannot compete on the same level in terms of price. The Conservative Party in Canada is the only one among the 5 major parties willing to call out the CCP, and its understanding of the regime is accurate. In its 82-page Canada's Recovery Plan released last month, the party made a sober and bold statement. It stated, "We must stand up to the Communist Party of China. Our quarrel is not with the people of China, who are part of the ancient civilization that has contributed much to humanity. We stand with Chinese Canadians. We stand with Uyghur Muslims, Tibetans, Falun Gong practitioners, Hong Kongers, and Chinese Christians. Instead, our issue is with China's communist government and leadership. The communist leadership represents a clear and rising threat to Canadian interests and our values. They've abducted our citizens, targeted our economy, and intimidated members of the Chinese Canadian community." The Conservative Party outlined economic decoupling initiatives from the CCP in its recovery plan, involving reducing reliance on supply chains from China, withdrawal from the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and banning Huawei. It reminds you of the Trump administration. Well, any government, after learning what the CCP has been doing over the last several decades, would do the same thing. According to a March public survey, nearly 4 in 5 Canadians say they don't have a positive view of China, with almost half of Canadians holding a very unfavorable view. A majority of Canadians also say Canada should strengthen trade ties with the United States and the EU instead of the CCP. The Trudeau government has been too close to the CCP. This might be the biggest mistake the Liberals have made, and it may come to haunt them in the 2021 election. The Pennsylvania probe of the 2020 election is heading in a completely different direction. The Intergovernmental Operation Committee, previously in charge of the election audit, is conducting an election malfeasance investigation. Republican Senator Chris Dush took over the committee after Senate Republican leader ousted former chairman Doug Mastriano. Mastriano was inspired by the Arizona audit after his visit and initiated an effort to launch a similar style forensic investigation. However, his initiative was not supported by his GOP colleagues. He said Senate President pro tempore Jake Corman, a Republican, stonewalled the investigation and undermined his efforts to extract information from voting machines in 3 Pennsylvania counties. Corman was also accused of calling state senators one by one not to attend the committee hearing last month where members were expected to subpoena the counties for election information. Dush is asking residents to submit their testimonies of election irregularities for forthcoming public hearings. But where's the audit? Jay Corman explained the goal of the Senate investigation will not be to conduct a recount. In other words, it won't be anything close to an audit, let alone a forensic examination. The goal has changed to finding flaws in the election system and taking actions to correct those through legislative measures. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in our Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.